Whenever someone asks what's the best story in gaming, the same game always come up. Red Dead Redemption 2! I'm not saying Red Dead Redemption 2 is a bad game. I'm just saying there are other games that are worth to talk about, like Assassin's Creed. I think it deserves to be part of that conversation. Because whenever I hear quotes like this from Ezio,
When I was a young man, I had liberty, but I did not see it. I had time, but I did not know it. And I had love, but I did not feel it.
I get goosebumps. And that was just one moment. Assassin's Creed has so many moments like this throughout the franchise. Moments that made me stop playing and just think about what I had experienced. When people talk about the greatest stories in gaming, Assassin's Creed has rarely mentioned. When you think about Assassin's Creed, what usually comes to your mind? Parkour, stealth, climbing buildings. What, the story? Assassin's Creed actually has a story worth talking about. Let's just start with probably the most obvious example, Ezio Auditore. If you played Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelation, you already know why so many people love this character. Ezio doesn't just appear in one game and have his story and then disappear. We follow him for years. We see him as a young man who has basically had his entire life destroyed. Then we watch him become an assassin, then a mentor, and eventually an young man who has spent most of his life trying to understand what the creed actually means. And that's what makes Ezio's story work so well. It's not just about some tough revenge mission. It's about growing up. It's about losing people. That's something you don't really get from a lot of video game characters. You actually get to watch Ezio age. You get to see how his experience changed him. And then Revelation gives us the final chapter. Ezio travels to Masyaf looking for Altair's secrets. And instead he finds something much more meaningful. He discovers the life and legacy of the man who became before him. And when Ezio finally sees Altair's final moment, he realizes that these two characters who live centuries apart are connected by the same creed. And then Ezio leaves the apple behind. He realizes that maybe the answer he's been looking for aren't some ancient artifact. Ezio's story alone could be enough to make the franchise worth talking about. Altair. I think Altair is a character people overlook even more. He's not exactly the kind of character you would expect to become one of the most important figures in the franchise. He's so tough, and honestly, he thinks he's better than everyone around him. He's already a master assassin, but that confidence becomes his biggest weakness. After failing his mission and breaking the Assassin's Creed, Altair is forced to start again from the bottom, and that's what I love about his story. It's not really about becoming a better assassin, it's about becoming a better person. He realized that the people he's hunting aren't simply evil monsters. They have beliefs, they have reasons, and some of those reasons actually make sense. And that's when the story starts to become something more than just assassin versus Templars. Altair is start questioning everything, like the creed or his masters, the people he served. And I think that's what makes the first Assassin's Creed so interesting. It doesn't just tell you what you think, it constantly asks you to question whether the assassins are right. And by the end of the game, Altair isn't the arrogant assassin we met at the beginning. He's wiser and he's more chill. And he finally understands what the creed actually means. And honestly, for a game that came out in 2007, that's pretty damn impressive. But what's even more interesting is that Altair's story doesn't really end there. His legacy ends up influencing the assassins for generations. And that's something I think gets forgotten when people talk about Assassin's Creed. These characters aren't just characters we play for a few hours. They're part of a much bigger story. Altair's choices affect Ezio. Ezio's choice affect the people who came after him. You're watching generation of characters carry the same ideas, make different mistakes, and try to understand what the creed actually means. A word that actually connects. But there's another reason I think Assassin's Creed story deserves more credit. It's not just individual characters, it's the way the entire world is connected. And one of my favorite examples of this is the My Glorious King Kenway family. Because Black Flag, Rogue, and Assassin's Creed 3 aren't just three completely separated stories. And when you actually put them together, you start seeing the Assassin's Templar conflicts from completely different perspectives. Like My Glorious King Edward Kenway. Edward isn't even trying to become an assassin at first. He's a pirate. He's tough and mean. And what I like about this character, he was interested in making money and building a reputation for himself. That's what makes his story so interesting. He started out chasing the idea of becoming rich and famous, but he slowly realized that the life he's chosen has cost him almost everything that actually matters. And eventually, he becomes someone who genuinely understands the assassin philosophy. And suddenly, we're looking at his son, Haytham Kenway. And here's where things get really interesting, because Haytham is an assassin, he's a Templar. And he's not some just cartoon tough villain character who wants to destroy the world. He genuinely believes that humanity needs order. The game doesn't always tell you, these guys are good, and these guys are evil. It lets you actually listen to both sides. And then there's Connor. Haytham's son. So you have a father and son standing on opposite sides of the same conflict, and the crazy part is neither of them is completely wrong. Connor believes in freedom, Haytham believes in order, and their conflict isn't just about assassin versus Templar. It's about two completely different ideas of how society should work. Cause you've already spent the time with Kenway. When Connor actually comes face to face with him, it hits differently. You understand both characters, you know what they believe, you know why they're fighting. And suddenly, this isn't just another boss fight or another assassin killing a Templar. It's a family tearing itself apart because of two completely different beliefs. But then there's Rogue. And this is where I think Assassin's Creed storytelling gets seriously overlooked, because Rogue takes everything you learn about Assassin's Creed and asks you to look at them from the other side. You play as Shay Cormac, an assassin who eventually becomes a Templar, and what's important is why he leaves. Shay doesn't just wake up in the morning and decide, you know what, I think I'll become a Templar. He becomes disillusioned with the assassin after seeing the consequence of their actions. Shay genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. For the first time, you're playing an Assassin's Creed game where the people you have spent years fighting are the people you're supposed to understand. And the Rogue connects directly into Assassin's Creed Unity. Shay's story eventually takes him to France, where he encounters Charles Dorian, Arnold's father. That one moment connects two games. At first, seem completely separate, because when you start Unity, you're not just playing as some random assassin in the French Revolution. You're playing as Arnold Dorian, the son of the man Shay killed. And Arnold's story begins with a tragedy that was directly caused by the events of Rogue. That's the kind of connection I'm talking about. You can play Rogue and Unity separately and still understand both games. You're seeing the consequences of one character's action from another character's perspective. And that's something Assassin's Creed does surprisingly well. And Arnold, whose story begins because of something Shay did. And suddenly, these aren't just individual games anymore. They are a piece of one massive world. But there's another character connecting all of these stories together, and that's Desmond. I think Desmond is one of the biggest reasons people forget how ambitious Assassin's Creed story actually was. Because when you first play Assassin's Creed, you might think you're just playing a game about Altair, but then you leave the Animus, and suddenly you're in the modern day, and you're playing as Desmond. It almost feels like a completely different story. Desmond isn't just a random character outside of the historical stories, he's connected to them. Through the Animus, he experiences the memories of his ancestors, and suddenly, all these different time periods aren't completely separate anymore. They're part of the one story. Desmond is a bridge between them, and I think that's a cool idea. There's an actual reason you're experiencing these different lives, and the more Desmond learns from his ancestors, the more important the modern day story becomes. His journey also changed him. At the beginning, he doesn't want anything to do with the assassins. He just wants to live his own life, but eventually, he accepts who he is and starts fighting for something much bigger than himself. The historical stories and modern day stories aren't completely separate. They're constantly influencing each other. You can even look at Ezio games differently because of Desmond. And then there's the ending of Desmond's story. That's what gets lost when people talk about Assassin's Creed today. People remember the open worlds, they remember the parkour, but underneath all of that was this huge interconnected story: Altair, Ezio, Desmond, different centuries, different beliefs. And when you look at the franchise as a whole, that's impressive. So if Assassin's Creed managed to connect all of these characters, time periods, philosophies, and stories, why don't we talk about it when we talk about the greatest stories in gaming? Maybe it's because the franchise has become too big. Maybe it's because not every game managed to maintain the same quality. But whatever the reason, I still think Assassin's Creed deserves to be part of that conversation. I'm not saying every Assassin's Creed game is a masterpiece. When you look at Altair's journey, Ezio's life, Edward's transformation, Haytham and Connor's conflict, and Desmond connecting all of these stories together, it's hard to look at all of that and call Assassin's Creed story forgettable. Maybe it's not the perfect story. It definitely has its problems, and honestly, I just wish more people talk about it.